this panel consists of people who come from various backgrounds to talk about how digital, which was an aspirational technology and media, has become a challenging intruder in our life in many, many ways. And that is what we are going to talk. I will first go to Nikhil to highlight, are we citizen, or are we digital citizen, or we are not even a citizen?
Yeah, so firstly, it's really an honor to be on this panel. I am the most non-digital person on the panel. Would probably define myself also as being digitally challenged. So by having me here, you've reached out also to the challenged community. And I think there needs to be a new category of those who are challenged. Three loaded words, actually: Digital Citizenship Summit. Summit we leave out, but two very loaded words, particularly if you put them together. So I'd briefly, in this initial bit, like to look at them separately. Citizenship, and I'll come later on to the more specific things that relate to whether it's right to information on Narega or rights or whatever else. But citizenship and rights shapes our politics, our development, our democracy, our markets. Practically everything that we do, wherever we do it. And citizenship and its interaction with our society is also defined again through our constitutional framework, which defines rights. So where does this idea of citizenship come from? Where does the idea of rights come from? It comes from our constitutional democratic framework. That is something that we have to apply. And I'll come to that a little bit further, but I think if we don't do that and just put these two words together, we are in deep trouble for a lot of people who don't have rights, who aren't really being able to exercise their citizenship in this country. That's one point I want to make. The other is digital modes and platforms. As a challenge, I'll just give a quick example. Aadhaar, I was one of the people along with Aruna who were petitioner against Aadhaar. And we came from a very different space, not from the space of surveillance, which is definitely an extremely important issue, not even from the space of where Aadhaar could be commercially exploited for data mining, which again is a very important issue, but because Aadhaar said that it will include people, Aadhaar is a means of inclusion, and Aadhaar said that it will increase efficiency. Now the question is, for whom? When we went through years and years of seeing, because it has been years already, of seeing, until today we see people who are excluded because of Aadhaar from essential services. You cannot at that point look at those who are getting it, those who are facilitated. You cannot look at overall figures. That's certainly something what a policymaker will do. But from the point of view of citizenship, you cannot exclude a single person. And therefore, Aadhaar kept saying we are not mandatory, but we are compulsory. And as a result of that, millions of people got excluded, millions of people even today are excluded. And I don't have the time and I won't go into issues of efficiency. For many people, it was not efficient. For the state, because it centralizes, because digital systems centralize, it is certainly, many of the people in this room will see all the value, and I don't dispute that, of being able to have it as a management tool. But from the point of view of citizenship, of particularly those most marginalized, it's a big challenge. Very quickly, there are people in this room, I'm really glad you've called them as well. There are three things that will give you an idea. Later I'll talk about them. There's going to be a public hearing on exclusion. Please do go to that. My suggestion is, because you'll hear from the ground the nature of exclusion. There's going to be one on proactive disclosure, which can really increase. There are systems that have come where what Jayesh was saying about how it can facilitate things. And there's going to be one very interesting one on the modes where digitization is being used in the space of commerce for gig workers. And how do you protect their rights when they are functioning only through digital systems in the market?
Thank you, Nikhil. I think you are still very polite, saying that, obviously, even one person left, that means it's a violation of citizenship and its rights. And imagine 400 million people, I was reading one data, usually apply, almost close to 400 million people apply for Narega job. And suddenly, and most of them are considered to be not connected and not having thing.
Yeah, so I'll just say one thing that I should have said. We need to, like we say, a violation of anyone's fundamental rights means any citizen can go straight to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
You don't need to go anywhere else. One person. We need to apply that to the digital space, to every one of our fundamental rights.
Now we are trapped by digital. Nobody's saying that we don't want to be digital or it's not necessary or it's not happening. But we are almost becoming non-existent in terms of, in the consideration of digital expansionism. It is becoming authoritarian for the government. It is becoming, for the media, it is happening, narrative ownership in terms of how they are doing. And corporates are actually consolidating us as what Kunal said is that we are a happy consumer and they are extremely happily taking us as consumers into that one. Our citizenship, it has a stake. Never in the history of any media that we have lost so much of, being citizenship.
Yeah, so Osama, what I'd like to do is just go into the development rights that we've fought for, Narega, pensions, and then also a right to information, and just look at some of the numbers, because conceptually we've talked a lot, but just let's look at Narega. Just now there are two digital methods that are being used. One is what's called the National Mobile Monitoring System. Attendance for 15 crore workers across lakhs of sites in the country is being taken on online mobile photographs. Just think about it. I am going to work and I will only get paid if twice a day my attendance is taken at those remote work sites. 15 crore people. Every 15 crore people are the active job card holders. On a given day, there'll be 3 crore, 4 crore people. The number of exclusions, and what is the argument that's been given? That we will reduce corruption with that. Number one. Number two, that we will increase efficiency of that. Now, it's mandatory. You will not get paid. And the systems that are there, after that, they say, no, of course you can go to the district collector and you can get it put in. So you can imagine, I won't go into it, there isn't time about it, but just the number of people we are putting to pain. And finally, what do you get paid for productivity? You're not measuring that. People are spending all day trying to get their attendance. That's all they care about. They don't care about the productivity. So you're actually doing something quite the opposite through this mandatory system. Second mandatory system in Narega is not just that you had Aadhaar, because now the Aadhaar authority says 100% Indians have Aadhaar. It is that you have an Aadhaar-based payment system. So it's Aadhaar plus bank plus KYC, a particular payment system that is now being put for Narega workers. Government has made it mandatory 3 times and pushed the deadline, because they are saying that only through mandatory systems will you get it. And today, government's own figures are that amongst active job card holders, after 3 mandatory deadlines, 15% do not have it yet. So you cannot get paid. You can go to work, but you cannot get paid if you are one of those 15% of the active job card holders. So what kind of pain are you putting? Not pain, you're actually taking them away from their daily livelihood. And the second thing in that is that you're making it mandatory. So what is the result of that whole thing? Is that, and it's not just Aadhaar, it's going to that bank, which itself has a whole lot of digital systems. It's KYC, it's e-KYC. And all of these, each one of these are mandatory put pain points, not just one thing of Aadhaar. Because you are forcing the administration to say that we want this done by this deadline, this year there have been 5 crore job card deletions. What do? You delete them. Because you can't meet that quota, the BDO can't meet the quota, you can't really get them onto that platform, so you delete them. Last year it was 1 crore, this year it's 5 crores. 5 crore households have been deleted. So you can look at the kinds of figures and numbers. The third thing is, actually in pensions, the second figure, we have a pension law, a new pension law that doubled pensions from 500 rupees to 1,000 social security pensions for 1 crore people. I was in the meeting where the Chief Minister pressed a button, and the magic of that, to see figures and people who were in the crowd saying, oh, the money has come. Because it's instant, it's DBT. It is great. But out of 1 crore, 18% did not get it because they were not verified. And how do they get verified? Through biometric verification. The biggest number who are actually excluded, in my opinion, is the elderly. Elderly women even more, but it's the elderly. As a group, the elderly, and particularly amongst marginalized poor people, incredible. Now you are not, you're dependent on that pension, and 18 lakh people in the state took months, and that you can hear in the stories about it. I won't go into each. Each individual story will bring you to tears, many people. And what was the result of that earlier? You then mark them as dead. Because you had to get them off that list somehow. So you either mark them as duplicate and mark them as dead. And that led us to do something, and that's the last thing I'll come to. The Jayesh ji talked about pole vaulting. Actually, digital things can make you pole vault. It can be a multiplier. But it can be a multiplier both ways, or it can also be a hurdle race. We have to make sure that we do not create a series of hurdles for people for their basic rights, which is what we are doing in governance often. And each one, every individual matters. Where there has been a pole vaulting, and I want to give that example, is that there is a thing that was created called Jan Suchna Portal when we were trying to see when they had said 2 lakh pensioners were dead, who were actually not dead because they had been deleted like that. We said, put those figures out. So an right to information can really be facilitated if you say that all the data that government has is put out. Number 1, it's put online. Number 2, as an online facilitator. Number 3, you have no admin logins for it. What you can see, people can see in the formats that they want. And I'd like to suggest to Jayesh ji, if you can take that on here, this is something that can really move. In Rajasthan, it's been there for 2.5 years. It came out of those dead pensioners. Our demand in 20 days sitting on Dharna to say, give us those figures. It brought a whole lot of everything that government should come automatically without putting a right to information application. I've just looked at the figures. There are 15 crore accesses that have been done in the last 2.5 years to get 27 crore bits of information downloads. That itself tells you how useful it was, how people used it as a multiplier. It doesn't exclude, it includes. So those are the kinds of ways in which we have to try and go for.
Yeah, Nikhil.
Yeah, I have one question, a challenge, and then a suggestion.
Yeah.
The question is, Rajasthan has given free mobile phones to 40 lakh women, and they're saying they're going to give it to 1 crore 35. Is that a freebie, or is it an essential service? Question. Second, and I would love to know from you what you all think, say, particularly people in this room. Second, that I think there should, I've heard a lot of times, this idea of a right to internet law. This room, any technology is a force multiplier for existing power relationships, normally. Unless you have people proactively going around to make sure that force multiplier is for the excluded and marginalized. Can we have a right to internet that can be framed by people like us? Should there be one? And can we have one that can be framed by people like us so that it is working for the marginalized, it's working for the exploited? And the last, which I really think is a big exercise, but I think it should be done, is each one of our fundamental rights. Kunal, when we talk about diversity, when we talk about what our Constitution offers, whether it's the right to life, or the right to food, or the right to freedom of expression, or the right to religion and religious expression, can we connect with each one of those rights and see how does digital medium help our citizenship? And how does it make sure that those that are preventing it are dismantled? That's a challenge, I think, before all of us.